I only opened the swipe dating app because my roommate had moved out, and the apartment felt too quiet at night. I matched with a guy named Mason, and his messages were normal enough to keep me replying. By Friday, we'd agreed to meet for coffee near my place, mostly because it was convenient. I spent Saturday morning cleaning like a guest was coming over, even though he wasn't. Around dusk, I took the trash down the hall and noticed a single white rose on the floor by my door. I hadn't told Mason my unit number. I checked the peephole twice before I went back inside, then slid the deadbolt and tried to laugh it off. A new message popped up. "You've got the prettiest hallway light." I turned off every lamp in my living room and stood in the dark, listening. A few minutes later, someone walked past my door, slow and deliberate, like they were reading the numbers. The steps stopped directly outside my mat. Then my handle moved once, careful, testing. I backed into the kitchen and grabbed my phone with shaking hands. I didn't call anyone yet, because I didn't want to be dramatic if it was a neighbor. Then my front door clicked. Not open, just the lock shifting like someone had the right key. I stared at the crack between door and frame, waiting for the deadbolt to hold. The chain trembled, and the door pushed inward 2 inches. Through the gap, I saw Mason's face, close enough to see the pores on his nose, smiling like we were already on a date. He whispered my name, soft and confident, and the chain went tight as he leaned his shoulder into it. I screamed and threw my weight against the door, and his eye widened, angry now. His fingers shot through the gap, scraping for the chain latch. I bolted down the hall barefoot, pounding on my neighbor's door with both fists. Behind me, the chain snapped with a dry metallic pop, and my door swung open hard enough to hit the wall. Mason's footsteps changed from slow to fast, chasing, closing the distance. My neighbor yanked his door open, and I threw myself inside as Mason rounded the corner. He stopped in the hallway, breathing hard, staring past my neighbor's shoulder right at me. Before the door slammed, Mason lifted the rose he'd kept in his hand and crushed it into a wet, white fist. I matched with a guy named Callum on a dating app, and he seemed harmless in that polished, too smooth way. We kept the chat inside the app because I don't hand out my number quickly anymore. By the 3rd day, he was pushing for a video call, and I kept dodging it. That night, my phone warmed in my palm like it was working too hard, even though I wasn't using it. The screen flickered, and a draft of a message appeared in the chat box by itself. "I can see you." At the end of the line, a cursor blinked like it was waiting. I deleted it and forced a laugh, telling myself it was a glitch. Then my living room lights dimmed, brightened, and dimmed again in a steady rhythm. My wall tablet lit up with the home controls, even though I hadn't touched it. A notification slid across the tablet. Remote session active. The thermostat clicked, and cold air poured out until my skin pebbled. The speakers in my kitchen gave a soft chime, and a voice played, my own voice, from a recording I didn't remember making. I yanked the tablet off the wall and held it like it could bite. The screen stayed on, showing menus opening and closing, like invisible fingers were scrolling. Then the sliding door at the back of the townhouse unlocked with a bright, cheerful beep. I froze, staring at the glass as the latch shifted again, slower this time, like someone was savoring it. A pale shape appeared beyond the patio, not rushing, just approaching with certainty. When the door slid open an inch, I saw a hand on the frame and a phone screen in the other hand glowing with my face on it. I ran for the stairs, but the hallway lights snapped off, turning the landing into a black throat. Behind me, the sliding door rolled wider with a soft, steady whisper. Footsteps entered the kitchen, unhurried, like the person already knew the layout. I lunged into the downstairs bathroom and slammed the door, twisting the lock until it hurt my fingers. The knob turned anyway, slow and firm, and someone exhaled right against the wood, close enough to vibrate it. I kicked the hamper into the door, climbed out the tiny window, and hit the wet grass hard. I sprinted to the street in my socks, not stopping until I reached the glow of my neighbor's porch. When I looked back, a tall figure stood in my open sliding doorway, holding that lit phone up like a lantern. The tablet I'd ripped off the wall was back on inside, shining bright, and the porch camera rotated to follow me as I ran. I matched with a guy named Drew on a swipe dating app, and he suggested something low pressure. He offered to bring ingredients and cook at my place, which should have been an immediate no, but I'd had a long week and wanted to believe in normal. I told him a firm time window, and I texted my friend the address just in case. He arrived right on time, holding a heavy grocery bag that looked too packed for a simple dinner. He didn't step in when I opened the door, just stood there smiling until I backed up. The first weird thing was the smell, sharp and chemical, leaking from the bag like a cleaned-up crime scene. I asked what he brought, trying to keep my tone light, and he said, "Everything we need," without blinking. He set the bag on my counter and kept his hand on it, possessive. When I reached for it, he slid it away from me with a quick, practiced motion. I told him I wasn't comfortable and suggested we go out instead. His smile stayed, but his eyes didn't, and he glanced past me toward my hallway. Then he asked, casually, if I lived alone, like he was confirming a detail he already knew. I stepped toward the door to end it, but he moved first, cutting me off with the bag between us. The front door clicked, and I realized he'd turned the thumb lock while I was talking. He tilted his head and said, "We don't need interruptions," like it was romantic. I backed up until my hip hit the kitchen island, and my hand found my phone on the counter. Drew reached into the grocery bag and pulled out a roll of plastic wrap and a bundle of thin cords, neatly coiled. He laid them down gently, like setting out utensils, and finally I saw what kind of dinner he'd planned. He stepped closer, and the air around him smelled even stronger, making my throat tighten. I lifted my phone like a weapon and shouted that I was calling someone, and he lunged. His fingers caught my wrist, crushing, and he tried to drag me toward the hallway with quick, silent strength. I twisted hard and slipped free just enough to slam my elbow into his ribs and break his grip. He snarled, an ugly, real sound, and grabbed for my shirt as I ran, nearly catching me at the doorway to the laundry nook. I dove through the side window above the hamper, scraping my arms, and dropped onto the gravel outside. I didn't stop running until I was pounding on a stranger's door 2 houses down, sobbing out the words like they were rocks in my mouth. When the police arrived and we returned, my front door was wide open, and the grocery bag was gone. In my driveway, my car's interior light was on, and Drew was sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead like he'd never left. Then he turned his head slowly to look at me.